Let me say something more about our new leader, Ramaphosa, and Mnangagwa. If I had a choice, would I be Mr. Mnangagwa right now or Cyril Ramaphosa? My choice, Losande, will be Mnangagwa. I'd rather be him. For a simple reason, in the 2 weeks that he's been in power, he stood up, unilaterally amended the very unpopular indigenization program, where all local and foreign investors in Zimbabwe got to allocate 51%. That is controlling share of their business to the indigenous people. It's not nationalization, it's not the state. It's a form of BEE. And 2 weeks after he took over, he changed this. He says, then he announced that the 51% falls away, except in 2 sectors. Diamonds, and we know diamonds is big business in Zimbabwe right now, and the Maranje diamond mines south of Umtali. And it is a pot of gold. No, it's a pot of diamonds. So a lot of people make money out of it. Also, people who used to be associated with the military. The DRC people made Mnangagwa an offer, and that was called DMI, Defense Military Industries. When that war stopped in the beginning of the 90s, the assets of that excursion in defense military industries never went through the central bank. In that sense, I can understand why Mr. Mnangagwa offered Robert Mugabe, and what's the best word that I can use, exit packet, which in a sense means that old cronies stand by one another. And here with us, this kind of scenario is not possible. Namely, that Ramaphosa was not part of such a setup. Say, take the Public Protector's report. Nowhere is his name mentioned with Tegeta and Oak Bay and Trillion and so on. So there is no commonality there. So therefore, from this point of view, we might anticipate a different kind of exit compared to that one. But I would still, if I had a choice to be Mnangagwa or Ramaphosa right now, I will be Mnangagwa, because Zimbabwe is an authoritarian state. It hasn't a civil society. It has no free press. What the boss says is what the boss says. Compare that to Ramaphosa. He's got the top 6, 3-3 divided, 50%. He's got to consult them on anything, everything. When it comes to the National Executive Committee of about 80 members, it's slightly in favor of Ramaphosa now, but he still has to consult. So the decision-making process in Zimbabwe, for the fact that it's an authoritarian state that became a failed state, and one senior guy took over, immediately rewarded the military men, the generals and so on, to special posts, whereas Ramaphosa will have to deal with his own factions. There are no factions any longer. Then also, the Zimbabwean president was never threatened by courts. With us, we know that Zuma was plagued by courts. 783 court cases still hanging. So this is just an opening remark as far as Mnangagwa and Ramaphosa is concerned. He's got so many checks and balances on him. Therefore, it is pretty difficult to make a prognosis where we stand now, the 24th of January, where Ramaphosa will end up, say, policy-wise next year, mid-year, when the 2019 elections take place. I suspect what we will see between now and then is that this is the document distributed by the government at the time of the budget this past year, 2070, a radical economic transformation. I make a prediction. The longer Cyril stays in power, I'm not disloyal, Mr. Ramaphosa stays in power, we'll probably hear less and less about a radical economic change. If it was real state capture, real state capture, serious business state capture, then the company tax rate, maximum company tax rate, that was 27% last year. That would have been increased to a majority, 50 or 51 or 52 or 53%. And yet, the company tax rate was increased from 27% to 28%, only one. Firstly, I think we're back by the old terminologies. The report that Cyril Ramaphosa and Trevor Manuel jointly wrote, that is the National Development Plan, which we never heard about when Mr. Zuma was in power. We never heard about it. It was, from time to time there was a reference, but it was nobody's guideline. First, when he spoke after the mid-December, he said there will be land reform, expropriation, without compensation, but it should not be detrimental to food security, to productivity, and to downgrading South Africa. The other big debate that I anticipate will happen this year is the question of the independence of the central bank. The latest public protector, Ms. Mkhwebane, the successor to Tudi Madonsela, she made the point, and then it was poo-poo, then it was down. And I had a look in the Constitution. Section 224 says that the central bank is an independent institution, but it is not of those special 9 institutions, which includes the public protector, the electoral commission, etc. And in order to amend anything as far as the independence of the central bank is concerned, I came to the conclusion, Section 223, it says with an ordinary majority. So if the ANC wants to have the independence of the central bank change, making it a state-owned enterprise, say like SAA or Eskom or whatever, it would be a very easy process. But I think Mr. Ramaphosa understands that, and many other people understand that as well, and this will probably not happen. There's just a possibility that next year we may face coalitions. Again, there are 25 political parties participating in Parliament, which is a very, very high number. The reason is simple. We have a PR system, a proportional representation system, that says that there's no cutting off point, as long as you pay your registration fees. But be it as it may, there are 3 serious candidates for participation in a coalition government on one proviso, one provision. And the provision is that the ANC under Cyril Ramaphosa gets less than 50% of the cast votes. The last municipal election, 2 years ago, the ANC got 46%. Before that, the ANC had 54% in the general elections of 2014. ANC number 1, 46%. DA number 2, 26%. EFF number 3, 8%. Right, let us look at the permutations. ANC and DA, if you add that 46 and 26 together, that's 72. Nog nie genoeg vir 'n 3/4, not enough for a 3/4. That is 75% in order to amend the basic characteristics of the Constitution. If it's the EFF and the ANC, on the stats that we have, ANC 46, EFF 8, that tallies 54. And dis die enetjie wat ek sê, this is the most likely one in my mind. Is it the best one for us? I say no. Especially if you think you've got a middle class base. By middle class base, I mean it's people who cherish property rights, people who cherish clean neighborhoods, people with bank accounts, and these things matter. Middle class people don't trash shops like H&M. Zuma hasn't gone yet. A president can only go when he or she is impeached. Section 89 of the Constitution, but it requires 2/3 of Parliament. So it requires that a large chunk of the ANC must also vote for the impeachment. It hasn't happened, and I don't think it will happen. And then the other mechanism of removing a president is the vote of no confidence. The vote of no confidence is Section 102, at the bottom of my page. Section 102, it says that if a vote of no confidence is adopted by an ordinary majority of 50% plus one, but then the consequences for the ANC are dire. It's not just the president who must resign, but all members of the executive, not the ordinary ANC MPs who sit in Parliament, but those who are deputy ministers and ministers, approximately 60 of them. If Zuma is really in dire straits, and dire straits means if he resigns, then he retains his benefits, pension schemes and other things. But if he's kicked out, like in the motion of no confidence, for instance, or impeachment, then he loses Inkandla and he loses all the rest. So this is what I'm still wondering, trying to get around the head of Cyril Ramaphosa when he says he wants to give Zuma a dignified exit. One thing, and that's my parting shot, one thing, whether it is Cyril Ramaphosa or not, Brexit is taking place. And our biggest export partner in the Brexit countries is the UK. I was personally involved those days with the wine farmers, getting a quota for wine, deciduous fruit, etc., etc. If Britain is completely out of Brexit, no one knows exactly when, then we'll have to start expeditiously, try and renegotiate a special deal with the Brits as they stand, and also argue to retain whatever Brexit benefits we have, because Brexit for us is FTA, free trade. Free trade initially linked to quotas, which is volume, and later to tariffs, and now it's basically for free. So these are two, with the rand that is strengthening, not weakening. With a weakening rand, we can export to any country, we'll still make money. But with the rand that is strengthening, under Cyril Ramaphosa, we'll have to look at these small opportunities as well. And the small opportunities is, what if, or what now? If Brexit is complete, we have no deal with the Brits, and the deal with the Europeans are not that helpful. So we look at that. Maybe die bestuurskool, julle by ITN kan die initiatief neem met so iets. Okay, that's all.